Hello, so I wanted to go through and show you guys how I got into programming with the StarCraft 2 API bot. I'm doing it in C++, but they also have for Python, Go, and a bunch of other languages as well, Java. But so we're going to go to our handy friend Google here, and we're going to type in like SC2 API. I usually throw bot in there, and then that will come up with like the Python bots and everything else as well, if you wanted to try and get into that. Um, and if we go to the Blizzard, this is their GitHub. This is this is where they publish their stuff too, and they have all their documentation here, and you can go through for like classes and files, and they even have tutorial page on how to set it up and go through it. Some of this is kind of out of date, and it was actually kind of a headache to go through. So there's actually a more recent one that you can go to. And if you were just to search the SC2 API and you went to their GitHub directly, it's the S2 client-API, and you can fork this repository. Like I said, it's kind of dated. They haven't had a lot of maintenance on this. With their latest release, 2017 was their latest official release for this. And it kind of goes through this with the code and everything, and this is how you can get to the documentation that I had just showed you. But the one I prefer to work off of, this is more up to date. It's CPP-SC2. It's a fork that has been maintained from Blizzard, and its latest official release was January 8th, but they've had plenty of commits and updates since then. So if you go here, and if we go into the docs, it actually will walk us through how to go through it. And we'll, instead of clicking get started, we'll click building. So here you got to make sure you have CMake. So if you don't have CMake already installed, you can have it installed for Windows, Linux, Mac. Go through, install that, and a compiler with C++14 support. And then you want to clone the repo. So the problem I was facing with this is I was working off of the newest Visual Studio. I was working off Visual Studio 2022. They don't have the support for that yet. So if we go here, we go into PowerShell, because I'm using a Windows machine. I've already created a folder that I wanted to use on this. Oop. So we're going to go into my SC bot folder. I'm going to change it into, I made one called demo. And we're going to go through, and what's nice is I can just go through and copy this code here. I can paste it. And that'll clone the entire repo through. What I ended up doing first was I forked this into my own repo, and then I went through it, because as you can see here, I don't have read writes here. And then depending on which, for example, I was using Visual Studio. Depending on which Visual Studio you're using, you would just use that CMake build. And like I said, they don't have it updated for, you would have to edit the CMake files directly. And if you're not used to doing that, then this is going to cause you some headache. So I just went ahead and I actually just used the 2019 version. Once you go through, you can actually start it up. And so I'll pull mine up. And then that's how we get into the bot. They start you off with this nice little tutorial class. I've kind of actually been using that as my main file for right now. And I'm just kind of throwing all the junk that I'm learning into it as I go through. And I'm just throwing it into there, and I'll sort it through later. But they have these other samples as well, samples and examples, such as how to use feature layers, what an intermediate type bot would look like, how to use how to do like micromanagement. For example, with the Marines, when they're being attacked by Zerglings, you can actually keep the Zerglings at bay. They're a melee unit, and the Marines are a ranged unit. So if you can shoot and then back, shoot and then back, it's called kiting, you won't lose as many Marines as if you just stood still and engaged with them. So the microbot would actually teach you how to do that. And so I learned some things about like inputting feature layers, so I kind of threw in some feature layer stuff. And then I've got various code here that I've also threw in, basing it off of, for example, as you go through the tutorials, I believe tutorial number 2, it teaches you how to find the nearest mineral patch and assign your workers to go to that mineral patch. For me, one of the challenges was, well, how do I do the Vespian gas one? And so then I went through and I looked at how to find for the Vespian gas, do attack moves, and try to get gas, things like this. The try to get gas was all about optimizing the refiners, because you can have 3 miners per refiner. So that was something that I did in a previous post on my blog as to go ahead and how to do that. So once you get it all through, you're actually going to run your CMake. Now I can just do it via build solution, and it'll give you a nice little executable in the folder. Excuse me. So I can actually pull up the bot. I can go here. So this is the bot where everything's at. You can see your CMake list in there. It'll have you make a build folder, and that build folder is, well, the build folder gets generated from the CMake bot, or the CMake commands. And you'll go through and you go into the bin folder, and once you get into the bin, you can run these executables. And that's how you'll get through and actually be able to run your bots. Now, in your code, if you do any cout statements, those will actually populate in your terminal on the right. So I use that for debugging if I want to see specific like Vespian gas levels of certain things, or if I want to see specific like how much military do I have at the current time. And I do this based on the game loops. So game loop is constantly running in an on-step function. So this is this on-step function. It's constantly, if you're familiar with Unity, it's like your update function. It gets called almost every frame. And so it goes through and it's generating all this. Now, one interesting thing that I found out recently was how to use these feature layers. So as you can see, I have these feature layers here. The bottom right one shows me where my minimap, where the screen is on the minimap. The left one will show any structures, if there's hidden units. So for example, if they're hidden, they show up as red. And if there's a unit hidden behind that unit, then it shows up as blue. And then the green are just various structures or units. So here I got a refiner being built on a Vespian gas module. So the green would be the refiner. The red is the Vespian geyser that's hidden. And then as the SCV was mining or building it, it showed up as blue because it was further hidden. You can actually see that now on this bottom right one. Now this the bottom left of this feature layer is actually the terrain height map. One of my future videos, I'm going to be going through and I'm actually going to be setting up rally points as well as having my units move along based on how the terrain map diffuses. So notice how there's like the various color changes that'll be able to determine. And this top right corner, you notice it's black as if nothing's there. It's actually, if I have anything selected, it'll populate what's selected and where they are on the screen. So if I was to put them like in the middle of my screen, now I can see what units I have selected and where they are on the screen. So I don't have a use for that one yet, but that's just some interesting stuff I learned how to do there. Now, before you get into the feature layer, you will have to modify your CMake list. And I want to show you how I did that last night, just in case anybody else is inclined to do that. So this is your CMake list that goes through and builds your project up. If you want to include any of the renderer files for the from the SC2 library, so there's this utilities folder with a SC2 renderer, and that's how you get your feature layers. That's how you can read the data maps and things like that. In order to use that, you actually have to use this extra command code here, and the reason why is because you have to include that library specifically. And the reason being is it loads this extra, essentially this is like a console output, and it loads it to be drawn based on the game. So if you look here, it says that I have two console windows. One is the one that I'm having as my debug log, and this other one's the feature layers. So if you wanted to do that, you need to take whatever your output file would be, your main file. So for me, I'm just, like I said, I'm just throwing everything in the tutorial. And you're going to want to put that down here in the example project extra. If you don't do that, you're going to get a bunch of errors, massive headache, trying to go through. That's what I faced. I was like, hey, I'm including it. This file matched the example file directly, and then it occurred to me it probably needed to be something modified in the CMake list, and that's exactly what needed to be modified. So one of the problems that I have with the SC2 API is it's not like let's go ahead and go to the docs here. Let me go SC2 API, and I'm going to go to the Blizzard's SC2 API here. They have the GitHub Pages site, which is this, and this is where they're hosting the API. This API information is actually pre-generated using Deoxygen, and it's not fantastic quality. It does have a search you can go through, but for example, when I was trying to implement my harvesters, here we go, ideal harvesters. The only comment here is that it's going to be an int, which is fine, you know, the ideal amount of harvesters. But it talks about assigned to a town hall, and the town hall that it's talking about are the command centers for the Xenon. It's the Nexus, and then for the Zerg, it's their hatcheries. Well, what it doesn't tell you is that you can actually also implement these two callouts for refiners, the harvesters, and the assimilators if you're playing with the for some reason I'm totally Protoss. I was spacing on their name. Another thing that they don't quite tell you is mineral contents. The amount of minerals if the unit is a mineral field. You can't use this command on like SCVs, probes, or drones. You can't use it to tell whether or not they have anything, whether they're holding anything. The way to actually tell that is you actually have to use buffs. And I alluded to that in a previous blog post as well. You want to call what buffs are on that specific unit, and that'll tell you if they're carrying Vespian gas, if they're carrying minerals, if they are have like some special ability attached to them, and so that's kind of nice as well. So just some things that I found out there going through, and as we're going through and setting it up and everything. And here's like setting up for the build files, and like I said, it has it for like Linux, Mac, Windows. And if you go through the docs here, you can go to like the tutorial, and like I said, it walks you through how to set up the bot. It walks you through how to set up the game, how to set up your first on-step function, and then it gives you these little exercises like, hey, try and print the number of minerals and Vespian gas. It doesn't tell you how to do it, but it just tells you do this and see if you can get there. So if you have any other questions on how to set up like the API for this, let me know, and I'll be sure to do a video on it. And as we've been talking, this has been playing in the background real time. And my Marines are just here decimating the Zerg. So eventually, this bot will not only be Terran, I'll set it to be a random. So whatever populates, whether it's Terran or Zerg, or if it's going to be Protoss, it'll go through and build it. But the Terran's going to be the easiest one to start your bot off with, because you don't have to worry about creep, building on creep if you're Zerg. You don't have to be worried about building inside a pylon if you're a Protoss. So that's something nice that you won't have to worry about. And that pretty much covers it. Once again, if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll be glad to do another video or just post some feedback. Okay? Bye.